You can find free things to do with your kids, right? So,
Free?
no more Top Golf.
That sounds like what my grandparents did.
Yes.
Free things.
Oh my gosh, climbing a tree.
Welcome to Cover Your Assets, your podcast for navigating the financial side of divorce. I'm Joseph DeCruz, and I am here with my co-host, Jade Eagles.
Life doesn't always deal you the best hand, but we're here to help you CYA in every way, because when it comes to your assets, it's all about playing your cards right. So, what are we talking about today?
Financial planning for single parenthood.
Sweet. So we kind of spoke a little parts of this beforehand in an earlier episode, but we're kind of going to dig into this a little bit more and from a different angle.
I think we were talking about co-parenting finances before. Now we're going to talk about it just for you.
Yeah.
So you are now going to be the king or queen of your own castle with your own budget. So basically, Jade, put that crown on and get ready to take those financial reins.
Let's do it.
I've got mine on already, so.
So
Yes.
I think what we're wanting to talk about on this subject is really, I guess, adjusting that financial plan and also your budgets moving into single parenthood. That's one thing that we want to talk about, as well as, I guess, anticipating those changes, from a planning side of things, correct?
Yeah, because you're going to be that CFO now. So whether you might have been the CFO before, chief financial officer of your house, or maybe you weren't before, but you will be now.
Yeah, get that title.
Embrace it. Embrace it.
And I think we also are going to look at maybe just trying to get a little bit creative as well there.
Creative, planning for changes, and just going with the flow, right? Keeping it positive.
Accepting, just embracing it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
going from we to me, right? We to me can be terrifying, exhilarating, a little combination of both. I know for me, emotionally and mentally, I was super excited. Sorry, I hate, does it sound terrible? But I was super excited to get divorced from that perspective.
Only if one person listens to it.
Yeah. But financially, it was terrifying. It took me over a year from the time that I started really thinking about it seriously to deciding to go through with the divorce because of the financial part. I was terrified of figuring out, how am I going to do this by myself? How am I going to pay for everything by myself? How are we going to divide these assets? How am I going to take on these increased expenses? Can I do it? And it took me over a year before I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I can get through it. I can adjust. How about you? What was your
it
situation?
kind of, as you're talking about that, it made me think about how we're talking about fantasies beforehand.
Yeah.
So, I think when I look at it in my situation there was all these hypotheticals or fantasies coming up and like what if scenarios coming up. And so there was like, oh, this will be so much better. This will be great. But the thing that kept on always pulling me back too, though, is that financial side, which we've seen the stats. We've spoken about them. I'm sure we've said one of these stats beforehand there, but that financial aspect of it can be probably the biggest part to get over there, because you can crunch numbers. If you're already working with a financial planner, maybe they could be help guiding you through this. If you've got some sort of, mentor or, some sort of, financial support team around you, maybe they can help guide you. But until you kind of take that step, there's that unknown. You also don't know how that your ex or your spouse at the time is going to respond,
Right.
Are they going to be amicable? Are they happy to kind of split assets? So I think that for me, there was a lot of that unknown around the financial side, which kind of pulled back on my excitement and, joy of looking forward to the, future of just myself and my son.
So really, that's kind of why we're going into this subject, right? Because definitely in our individual situations, it was a big stumbling block or delay, or it caused a delay in what I otherwise would have wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to help give you those tools to just start thinking about this financial aspect, so that if it was a delay, maybe you can move forward and be more informed.
Yeah. And look, no one likes change, or there's a resistance to change, but once you start on that journey, just have that positive mindset as well.
Right.
You will get through it.
Right.
with a few bumps along the way.
Just anticipate the bumps. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances.
Oh, you're weak in reading, I guess.
Yes. They update their survey every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news.
What did they find out?
The good news is over the past 30 years, the median annual income of single parent households has grown just over 45%, even after adjusting for inflation, to a national median of $43,000 per year. Okay, so that's good.
That's a good number.
Not so great. In any given month, roughly 11% of single parent households spend more than 40% of their monthly income just on their debts.
Wow. So not even looking at other sort of
not housing payment, not food, just paying down credit cards, loans, things like that. This 40% threshold is important because this is considered a measure of financial vulnerability. So I guess what this stat is saying that more single parent households versus other households spend a big chunk of their money on debts. So I guess what we're trying to do here is maybe try to help you juggle that, right? So that you're looking at your budget and hopefully not spending as much on debts and just working on your monthly spending in general. So how do we do this?
Yeah. So
what do we always talk about?
Budgeting.
Yes. The foundation of your house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
your financial house.
So it's like creating that baseline. So, I think a couple of episodes ago we spoke about, the popularity in various different apps that you can use for, I think we spoke about like Why Now Was It? Maybe the potential replacement for the Mintiers out there, which is like Quicken and stuff like that. Or
Quicken, Simplify, something called Empower. Your financial advisor, if you have one, might have their own budgeting software or should. So hit them up. Yeah, I know that we do.
Yeah.
So we have our clients use our own.
Yeah. Or if you're old school, just print off those, pay stubs, print off your bills, just
use a simple spreadsheet. There is no right or wrong. The whole point is just getting it done.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the important part of creating that baseline that we talk about is really just working out what's coming in and what's going out, inflows and outflows. So, we've got income as a source of, an inflow. Yeah.
What is your income from your job, from alimony, from child support, from other stuff, pensions that you may have, versus what needs to go out?
Yeah. So when we look at that, we kind of break it down into maybe those fixed and variable expenses.
So what's going out? What are your expenses, right? So we've talked about this before, but it's always worth mentioning. You got to budget first and foremost on those needs, right? What are your needs? Housing, right?
Yeah.
Food.
Public transportation.
Utilities.
Yeah.
So those are your needs, right? Non-negotiables versus wants and maybe some wishes, right? So wants. Do you like to go out to eat? I do.
Yeah.
Will I go out to eat as much?
Maybe you need to cook more.
Maybe not. Yes. Yeah. Right. Stuff like that.
A want is I want to have all those different subscriptions for, we were talking about it beforehand, like how Netflix, that can quickly add up. People cut the cable and then they spend the same amount or if not more on different subscriptions,
Yes. My newspaper subscriptions.
Do you need to have all those? Maybe not. Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. And you know what? Adding to that budget or spending plan, call it whatever you want, right? So if budget gives you like this sense of spending plan, right? Add to your spending plan an allocation to saving, right? So I guess it's spending but saving. So allocating a certain amount to set aside for some savings as well.
And a good rule of thumb, and I used to look back to my time when I was in Australia in the Navy, I think anytime I got a pay raise, I just kind of banked that raise.
Right.
Because I was already living within my means. And that's an important part of setting up that baseline. And when we're comparing our income and our expenses, we're really trying to make sure that our income is greater than our expenses. We're living within our means.
Ideally, yes, right? That's what you're really going for. Now, let's be real here. What is the agreement right now? For those of you that are in the middle of negotiations or done with the negotiations, what kind of alimony, child support, or any kind of agreement covering the cost of kids' activities and things like that, right? So sometimes child support's supposed to cover, hypothetically, kids' activities and stuff, and sometimes that's another agreement separate from that, right? However, in reality, rarely, if ever, do these income sources, alimony, child support, really cover the true cost of living your life, right? It just
Correct. Well, that's if
doesn't usually.
That's if you continue to get the alimony and child
It could
support
change
too.
at any time. Yes.
You do a quick Google search out there, and it's alarming to see from different stats from reliable sources on how many spouses who are expecting that support aren't receiving it. And then you've got to try and go and chase it back down too. So it's nice that maybe this is what you should be getting, but are you getting that as well?
So really expecting the worst and hoping for the best might be less jarring than the other way around, right?
I think one thing that we're talking about on that is like, look, if you've got a kid and we're approaching summer now, and one of the concerns that I always have is, oh my God, these summer camps all cost so much money. And typically, like I might pay for a whole camp and then ask for reimbursement later on.
What if they don't reimburse you in a timely manner or ever, right? So in terms of who has that mental burden or responsibility for planning and scheduling activities, right? So I know that's me. Right? So let's say my agreement is, and look, I always say I'm very lucky. We're pretty amicable, but I'm just using a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking badly about my ex here. But let's just say the agreement is that we split costs on everything. But you know what? I'm the one signing up for all these activities. So maybe I'm out $1,500 signing up for daycare or summer camp or clubs or whatever. And I have to pay for it up front. Is my whole budget and spending plan going to tank when my ex doesn't pay me back? If my ex doesn't pay me back, that's why you got to really work into your budget, building up that emergency fund just in case, because you're not supposed to rely on your ex anymore, or you can't, right? They're not. Yeah. You got to assume that they're not going to be reliable. You hope they are, but you got to expect that they're not going to be.
I guess I want to tackle two things that you just spoke about.
Yeah.
There. So one's like building up that emergency plan, which I'll get to in a second. But, one of the things I know that you do yourself, I don't do, I probably should do, is kind of having a separate fund where you're both contributing
a joint
account for those activities. So maybe a good rule of thumb is you're not signing up for that activity unless you both have contributed to that joint account. That
you front the money.
Can then be paid for that activity.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And also, you know what? Maybe setting up that joint account and funding it with emergency funds, both of you, while you're amicable, when you have an amicable moment, right? Because let's face it, right? So spouses, ex-spouses, right? You go through your amicable moments and you go through your not amicable moments, even in the best of cases. Yes?
Yeah.
So maybe while you're having that amicable moment, you can bring this up and say like, hey, let's put this joint account together. Let's each pitch in some money so that there's like a cushion here for activities.
Yeah, and the other one that I just wanted to touch on with the emergency fund, it's probably if you that's probably one of the first things that you should be targeting if you do have a surplus.
Yeah.
And you don't already have an emergency fund. You really need to be dedicating and kind of siphoning off, whether it be directly through payroll as well. So it's going directly into a savings account or a high yield account there. Out of sight, out of mind. Maybe that you actually have to go into the branch to get access to, I don't know if that exists anymore, but like if you're tempted to tap that money, try and put layers there to stop you from getting it.
Yeah.
Because an emergency can always just be around the corner and we don't want to go into debt to cover that.
And I'm not talking about serious emergencies, although you need to plan for those too. I'm not even talking about that. Emergencies meaning, oh my gosh, my ex didn't give me what I expected this month and I'm going to have to cover.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I mean. So other tips. I mean, I guess once you build out that baseline budget, where are you today? Now is the fun task of reallocating, right? I'm trying not to use the word cut or reduce, but let's reallocate your expenses. what is it that you truly need or want or whatever, and what changes can you make, right, in the short term? So we talked about this before. Think about potentially downsizing your home, right? Even if it's temporary, right?
You could even, if you got a spare room, you could always potentially...
You can rent it out.
You can rent it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are lucky enough, maybe where you're working from home and you've got a walkable lifestyle where you can walk to a lot of things, do you need your car? I guess you could rent that out.
Or do you need the car that you have right now?
Yeah,
or could you downsize that car?
Yeah.
You can find free things to do with your kids, right? So,
Free?
No more Top Golf.
That sounds like what my grandparents did.
Yes.
Free things.
Oh my gosh. Climbing a tree.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds
free
fun.
stuff.
Yeah. And look, that is important because I think if you look at generalization of the generation today is, a lot of kids have sort of technology and it's probably, I don't know if I'm getting into trouble with this, but like it's probably not adequately monitored and stuff like that. And kids expect to have these things being spent on them. They don't. I think if you're showing that you're having fun doing something, I think that should flow down to your kids there.
The park is fun.
Yeah.
Maybe not for you. You might be bored, but you know what? Parks are fun for kids. They love parks.
I look at our kids sometimes when we've gone away camping. Sometimes the favorite thing they're doing is just playing in the dirt with a stick.
Yes.
For hours.
Yes.
That's free.
Stick and dirt. Yeah. I mean, and if you are looking for even socialization, right?
There's all those meetup groups as well.
That Facebook mommy or daddy groups in the neighborhood, just so that you can meet other kids and other parents that you can socialize with potentially for free, right? Meet up at the park.
Or there's always, even if it's not for free, there's always cheaper options of things to do. Do you need to be staying in a hotel? Can you enjoy camping for a bit? Maybe?
Can it be a day trip? Can it be a driving trip versus a flight?
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. And really, honestly, about all these things, I see it over and over that people fight over the house because they feel like their kids deserve to have the house. No. Remember, separate your emotions. Kids don't care. If they see that you're happy and, you are excited about moving to another place, maybe you're going from a 4-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom apartment, but you talk about it in an exciting way, like, this is a fun change, we're going to do this, and look, the apartment has a pool and we didn't have a pool before. They're going to mirror your emotions, right? So you go from a really nice car to a Kia. I don't know, I have a Kia, so I can say this.
What's wrong with the Kia? I've got a Kia too.
As long as you're excited about it and you're happy about it, they're going to be happy too. So don't worry about that stuff. They don't care as long as you're happy also being their parent. Right? All right. So also, if you're a stay-at-home parent currently, yes, the fact of the matter is you're probably going to need a job, right? Or even if you have a job right now, you might need to get an additional job, like a side gig, or work towards a promotion or getting a higher paying job.
I think we're in a society now where, especially with so much, via the internet, there's ability to be able to pick up other little jobs where you can do, whether it be a virtual assistant or, signing up for like some sort
Uber,
of online
grocery shopping. Yeah, anything, right? Yeah. Or just work on trying to, I don't know, get a higher paying job. That's what I did over time. It's not something that happens instantly.
And I think you I don't know if you mentioned it, Sam, but even just asking, because you might have been at your job deserving a promotion
for years.
But if you didn't ask, are you going to get it? Like, I think you had a friend who actually just went back and asked, realizing that he was grossly underpaid.
Yeah.
And he got this huge big pay raise straight away. And I was like, damn it, how long ago could I have asked for that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So look, if you haven't started the divorce process yet and you're thinking about like, maybe I need to get that job. Yes, this is the time while you still have that safety net. Get those wheels in motion. If you need to get training or whatever, just start looking for that job. Do it. It's okay. Like, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And if you haven't started the process yet, this is the best time.
Yeah. And I think, just talking about like other changes that are going to happen, there's sort of tax changes that might come in. There's health
income tax. Health benefits.
There's health benefits, looking at COBRA, making sure that you're signing up for it in time. How long is that coverage going to be for? What are those options there?
And that's if you were on your spouse's health plan, right?
Correct, yeah. I almost feel like we probably have to kick some of the things that we wanted to talk to
We may.
Another
We may.
session here.
But, I think the goal, the whole point of this is changes, right? So changes can happen quickly in terms of if you got to downsize or cut expenses. Yes. And maybe those don't feel that good, but those positive changes too, like trying to get a better job or working your way back towards that nice car or house that you wanted, or the trips that you had to cancel with your kids. These take time, but it'll happen if you want it to. You just have to work towards it, right? And the faster it'll happen, the faster you start.
Yeah.
Right?
Stop procrastinating and just start.
Yeah. And just accept that, yes, immediately post-divorce, your life is not going to look the same. And you know what? That's okay, because over a period of time, you can make it look like whatever you want, which is
exciting.
That exciting part. Yeah, that's the exciting part. So on that note, divorce this or that.
I think I need my phone passed to me, because I was thinking over the weekend, I'm like, I want to give you a doozy. So
divorce this or that, Sprouts. Okay, Sprouts, for those of you that don't know, is like a more crunchy granola type of grocery store, I would say. Yeah, it's sort of like a Whole Foods, but probably cheaper a little bit. Or H Mart, which is a Korean mega supermarket with eateries in it that has like really cool, delicious food in it. Divorce this or that.
I do like Asian food, and I like all my fun little ingredients there. So I feel like I would have to get rid of Sprouts.
But then when you need to buy oatmeal or something, are you going to be able to buy it from there?
No, maybe I could find another backup, some sort of alternate, or
So
I'll have to just like find something else online there.
All right, so you're going to divorce Sprouts. Got it.
Yes. All right. Okay, I've got one for you.
Okay.
So, Snoop Dogg.
Okay.
Or who's another one that you really like? I feel like I've failed on this one.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. I really love Snoop Dogg, so I have really different genres of interest. So I guess I'm going to ask myself one: Snoop Dogg or Hall & Oates? Oh, this is so tough. You know what? I can buy the Snoop Elf on the Shelf. He'll just have to sit on the Christmas tree or whatever. But I got to keep Hall & Oates. I got to keep Hall & Oates. But I'll keep the Snoop Elf on the Shelf.
And look, he might still.
He just can't. He can't sing. Yeah. He can't rap. Yeah. Right.
There's a couple of topics that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
We'll do in a separate podcast.
Podcast after this there, but we kind of wanted to focus on adjusting financial plans and
your budgets
for a single parenthood. We spoke about being creative and also I guess anticipating
changes and embracing them.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Cover Your Assets with your hosts, Josefte Cruz and Jade Eagles. Jade and Joe are advisors of the Wealth Garden FS, an SEC registered investment advisor. The information is general and educational in nature and should not be considered financial, tax, or legal advice. It is not intended to serve as a substitute for personalized advice or as a recommendation or solicitation of any particular security, strategy, or investment product. Please consult with a qualified professional about your individual situation.
Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where the Wealth Garden Financial Services and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by the Wealth Garden Financial Services unless a client service agreement is in place.